Hey, Gina.
Hey, Jeff.
Where are you?
I'm in Elk City, Oklahoma at St. Matthew's Catholic Church. And I'm so excited today. This is the first church on our Journey with Grace, our new van, where we get to interview a pastor, and he's going to share us how God spoke to his heart and helped him know that he truly has a calling to be a priest. And I'd like to introduce you today to Father Danny Grover.
Grover, yes. Grover, like the blue guy from Sesame Street.
Okay.
Yes. Easy to remember that way. Much easier to remember that way.
Yeah. Well, tell us, how did you get the call?
So I'm a cradle Catholic.
Okay.
My dad's a convert from New York. My mom is a cradle Catholic from LA.
Okay.
They met and got married in Izmir, Turkey, in the Air Force. So kind of a whirlwind of how I just came to be.
Exactly.
We moved to Oklahoma in 1993, and never really wanted to live in Oklahoma, but it has become a home for me, and I never want to leave now. And so going through grade school, I lived in multiple different countries, multiple different states, being a military brat.
Okay.
And so when we finally settled here, I was changing schools a lot growing up, and I didn't want to change schools again. And so I was getting to high school, and my dad was a counselor at the Catholic high school in Oklahoma City.
Oh, okay.
And so he's like, "You're going to be coming here." I said, "No, I'm not," because I didn't want to change schools again, because I had gone from public school, didn't want to go to private school after that, because I'd lose my friends yet again. And so I was a very rebellious teenager, as most teenagers are. And actually, our church was going on a mission trip to Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, okay. That's where we're at.
There you go. Called Catholic Heart Work Camp. It's the only time I think they've ever had it in Phoenix, Arizona.
Okay.
And so it's the summer of 1999, and I went not because I wanted to serve. I went not because I wanted to meet God. I went to get away from my family, because I was just at the end of my ropes. I struggled with depression and anxiety. I had started cutting even. I was very, very just in a rough place.
Yeah.
And so I go out there the summer before my freshman year in high school, and God just opened my eyes in a crazy way. There's actually a church in Mesa, Arizona called St. Timothy's.
We've been there.
And it's the place where Life Teen started.
Yes.
And that was our first mass that we had that week, was at St. Timothy's. And Tom Booth was their music director at the time. Mm-hmm. And the psalm that evening was Psalm 23, the rendition that Kathy Tricoli, a very popular Christian artist, sings. And at the life night that they had after that, they continually went through the refrain, "Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me." Over and over and over, we sang it. So much so that 6 months later, I still remembered it. Oh. Now, again, I wasn't very faithful. I went to Mass because my parents made me go to Mass, but there was no real connection between me and God until that week. And so that started the week. And again,
Okay.
I was there I was oblivious to the world.
Yeah.
And I was able to serve that week. And wouldn't you know it, God put the right people in the right place at the right time, as he does all the time.
That's right.
And so the high school I didn't want to go to just happened to have one of the kids from that high school in Oklahoma on this same retreat in Phoenix, Arizona. And they break you up into small groups,
Okay.
and they split you up between the parishes across the nation. The guy that was the freshman class president at the high school I was about to go to happened to be put in my small group.
Oh.
Knew my dad, knew my brother.
Oh my gosh.
Halfway across the U.S. And so in that, he kind of talked me into, yeah, I do want to go to this high school. This is really kind of a cool experience. By the end of that week, again, I hadn't realized it yet, but God had just planted the right seeds in my life, so that when I came home, my older brother, who's about 2.5 years older than me, said, "Danny, there's something different about you." I said, "Nothing's different. I'm the same guy as always." He's like, "No,
Yeah.
You're smiling. I haven't seen you smile in almost a decade. Something has changed in you."
Wow.
And so when I look back on that, that was really kind of the first moment in my life that God spoke to me, that I had that kind of, oh, something's different here moment.
Yeah.
Fast forward through high school, I went to every retreat I could go to. I was president of this, vice president of that, very active in the high school.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it helped that my dad, again, he was the freshman counselor there.
Right.
And so we got there an hour before school, left an hour and a half after school, so I had nothing really to do but pray, study, and mess around at the school.
And being involved helps with the depression too, doesn't it?
It does. It kept me out of trouble, but also my parents instilled in me a good work ethic at a young age. My first job was the summer of when I was 13.
Okay.
So my first job was actually working as an assistant groundskeeper at my home parish. Didn't realize that would be the place I'd be celebrating my first Mass 20 some odd years in the future.
How cool is that? that?
It would have been 18 years in the future.
Okay.
And so as I was going through high school, it's like, yeah, I mean, seminary, no, it's not really on my scope because I like girls, and you can't get married and be a priest.
Right.
It's just the
No
reality.
kids.
No kids, and I come from a decent-sized family. Nowadays, it's a large family, but
Yeah.
growing up, 10 kids in a family would be a large family.
You had 10?
No, there were only 5 of us.
Okay, but still, wow.
But still, today,
Yeah.
5 kids in a family,
Five's
that's a
huge.
large Catholic
Yeah.
family. So I went off to college, and you know that old saying, pride comes before the fall? Mm-hmm. My mom had the most wise words of wisdom that I didn't listen to. When I graduated from high school, I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I know I wanted to go to the University of Oklahoma. Why? Because I'm a football fan. And, I liked OU football.
Okay.
And so I didn't go because I liked the academics. I didn't go because they gave me a scholarship. In any case, went because it was 15 miles down the road. I could still come home on the weekends, bring mom laundry to do for me.
Yeah.
And I was rooming with my best friend. So yeah, we'll do that. Well, mom's advice to me my senior year in high school was, Danny, consider going to community college. Because you don't know what you want to do, and it's cheaper in the long run if you do that, get your basics out of the way, and then transfer into a university once you know what you want to do. Remember that whole pride comes before the fall?
Yeah.
I said, Mom, community college is for those that don't know, or community college is for those that can't make it in the real world.
Oh, no.
Again, 17, 18-year-old, we think
Not
we
true.
know everything.
Not true.
Not true at all.
Yeah.
Because I had also forgotten that my mom went to community college before going to college and becoming an officer in the Air Force.
Okay.
But again, I'm a 17, 18-year-old. I know
Right.
everything.
Right.
Went off to the University of Oklahoma, 3 semesters. Every semester was a different major. After 3 semesters, so when I graduated high school with a 3.9 GPA, graduated top 25 in my class. 3 semesters at OU, 1.3 cumulative GPA.
Oh, dear.
Like a D minus.
Uh-oh.
And so I dropped out before I could fail out. And moved back home. And when I moved back home, it was one of the most humbling moments of my life because I didn't really know what to do. I felt like a failure.
Yeah.
I'd always heard this phrase growing up that if you drop out of college, you'll never continue on. There was some mantra of that, and I don't know where it came from. And so I had this goal, I will be back in school in a year. I'll be back in a year, I'll be back in a year. So I took a year off from college, moved back home, worked full-time for an asbestos abatement company. People that remove asbestos from buildings, we did air quality control for it.
Okay.
So ironically, that would help me down the road in my priesthood, but that's a whole other story.
Cool.
But in that time, I had so much free time. So much so that I read the Harry Potter series in a week.
Wow, that's a lot of pages. Those are thick books.
They are, but they're really quick reads.
Yeah.
And I read through that, played every video game that I had, because that's why I dropped out of college, was play too many video games. Nowadays, you can get scholarships for it. Wrong generation, but yet again, I digress. But I had realized I've read everything, I've watched every movie, I've played every video game. I've never read the Bible from cover to cover. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing it cover to cover. In fact, one of the great things that the church has come out with in the last couple of years is the Bible in a Year Timeline with Father Mike Schmitz. Highly recommend it, because it doesn't just go cover to cover. It doesn't just go like Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. It goes chronologically in the story of salvation history. I, however, again, as a 19, 20-year-old college dropout, thought that I knew better, and so I'm going to do this cover to cover. Well, Genesis, interesting. Exodus, interesting. Leviticus, rules, Numbers, oh my gosh. Deuteronomy, are we done yet? No, we're only 5 books into the 83 inscriptions. Like, this isn't going to work. And so I had, during that time, begun to discern, is this what God's calling me to? Well, no, I still want to get married, I still want to have a family.
Right.
And so during my time during that job, I actually met with a priest once a month.
Okay.
He was my freshman chaplain in high school, just happened to live in the town next to where I was working. And he said, hey, come over, Danny, come over once a month and we'll go out to dinner. College dropout, didn't have a lot of money, free food. We'd always go to a nice restaurant. Can't turn that down, right?
No, never.
And so I didn't realize until I looked back that we were doing spiritual direction. But we were doing it over a free meal. And again, God puts people in your path at the right time, at the right place. And so after a year working there, I said, you know what? I made myself this pact. I'm going to go back to college. So I went back to Oklahoma City Community College. Remember that whole community college? My mom, so it's one of those, in your 20s, when your parents' words come out of your mouth for the first time, it's like, oh no, what has happened? But my mom's wisdom finally came to me because I was getting older and getting a little wiser, still didn't know what I was doing, but I went back to community college. And 3 semesters, 4.0. because
Sweet.
I was paying for it myself. And it was
Smaller class
interesting.
sizes?
About the same.
Really?
Some of them were about the same.
Okay. In Arizona, it's smaller class
No,
sizes.
I mean,
than
it was
community
still a good
college.
40, 50 kids in a classroom. But the topic that I had chosen was philosophy and sociology, was my major.
Okay.
When I look back, it's like, what can you do with a philosophy and sociology degree? He's chuckling because he's like, I've been to seminary. There's not much you can do besides become a philosopher, become a teacher, say would you like fries with that, or become a priest.
There you go.
And so it was actually in my third semester there when the question that came to mind wasn't the most, again, just like when Christ met me that first time at that work camp, it wasn't I'm gonna go and do these great things. It was, how long's the autobiography for the application for seminary supposed to be? That was the thought that came to mind. It was, again, the most self-centered idea God can work in. Because if you open that door of your heart just a
even
smidge,
a crack,
and you invite him in, he will burst through. And so I call the vocation office, and next thing I know, I'm applying for seminary. And it's like, what's going on here? This was not my plan.
Yeah, you were just checking. You were just curious. What would that entail?
Exactly. And so I called and said, so how long is the autobiography supposed to be? They said, a page and a half, 2 pages. Like, I've already got 13. Yeah, you need to dumb that down a little bit for us, guys. It's like, okay, well, so I next thing I knew, I was meeting with my pastor, who we were a little contentious with because we're very, very similar, very opinionated, and then we started the process of seminary, and I said to God, I've tried things my way time and time again. I ran away instead of going to that camp. I thought I knew better than my parents in going to college and knowing what I wanted to do. Every time that I put myself first, where I think I know what's best and I don't invite God in, I fall flat on my face.
Yep.
I swear if there were a spiritual nose job expert, he would be my guardian angel, because I've fallen flat on my face time and time and time again. And so I said to God, I'm going to apply for seminary. If I get in, I get in. If not, this is your one shot, and I'm out. Well, obviously, I got in and made it through. But even in seminary, I struggled, because one of the things that Bishop Fulton Sheen, in one of his books he actually wrote, he reminds us the priest is not his own. And so one of the biggest things that I had to learn in seminary, it's not about me. It's not about me. And grieving the loss of those things that I had longed for. Kind of like when a woman gets pregnant and has a miscarriage.
Yeah.
One of the hardest things to go through, what do you have to do? You have to grieve the loss of that life that you had expectation for.
Yeah, that you were looking forward to.
And so it was about 5 of my 8 years into seminary where I began to grieve the loss of that life that I had planned for 20 some odd years at that time of, I'm not going to have a wife. I'm not going to have kids. I'm not going to have sex. That's just a reality of being a priest. And was I okay with that? And so I took a pastoral year, actually, to kind of work through a lot of that psychologically, spiritually, physically, to kind of figure out, okay, is this what God is really calling me to?
Right.
And then after 8 years of seminary, I was ordained. And actually just celebrated 8 years of ordination last Tuesday.
Yay! Congratulations!
And so all of that to say, I don't have one anchor moment. I don't have one God moment. God continually
But a lot of them in there for you.
And that's just the tip of the iceberg. They always talk about an iceberg that 10% is above water and 90% is below. There are so many other God moments in there, from losing a house in a tornado
Goodness.
my first year in seminary, my dad having stomach and heart issues on Easter Sunday, and me missing work that whole week. So I came back, I was going to work, and I spent the week in the hospital with him. God used that opportunity for me to come to terms with death. So when my dad died almost a decade later, I was able to anoint him on his deathbed in the midst of COVID.
Wow.
The first visitor that they had in the hospital in almost 7 months, I get to go in not because he's my dad, but because I'm his father.
Wow.
And I got to be there with him as he was intubated, still somewhat conscious. I got to anoint him, pray over him, and he could squeeze my hand, he could shake his head. And I was able to say to him those words that I think we always wish we could say to our parents or to any of our loved ones. I said, Dad, we're good. Allow the Lord to take care of you. If this is your time, we'll figure it out. Now, it still sucks that he died. Don't get me wrong. It does. But at the same time, what better gift could God have given to me than the ability to forgive my dad's sins literally on his deathbed? so that I have that certainty and surety in my heart. I know where he is. He's in heaven. Why? Because he's been baptized, he's been confirmed, he's received the Eucharist, he's received the sacraments throughout his life, and he didn't have the ability to sin because he wasn't conscious after he was anointed.
You're going to make it.
That's how you want to do it.
There's a zero doubt there.
And so I don't want to take up too much of your time, but I appreciate you guys stopping by here in Elk City. I was driving by and just happened to see you guys parked outside. I was like, what's going on out there? And let me go check them out. So I'm so glad to have you guys here. I'm at our beautiful parish here at St. Matthew's in Elk City. I've been here for about 2.5 years. As I said, I've been ordained for 8 years. And it's kind of crazy how God gives you more than you can ever want, more than you can ever expect. We hear that saying a lot, that God will never give you more than you can handle. That's a flat out lie. God sometimes purposely gives you more than you can handle so that you realize you can't do it by yourself. You have to rely on God and rely on everybody else in the community of faith.
Yeah, because we're supposed to be his hands and feet.
Yes.
Because that's our calling.
Yep.
Is to be God's hands and feet on earth.
Yep.
And all those people that were put in place, sometimes you don't even know that you're called to be an angel to somebody, and you don't know it. It just happens because God will put you in that right place at the right time. We can still screw it up.
Yep.
We can still screw it up because we've got our free will, but he gives us opportunity to be his hands and feet.
Yep.
And what better joy is there in this world, seriously, when you can help someone else? It lifts your heart as well.
Yep.
And it's just a win-win of love.
Yeah. And you were going to say?
I was going to say, or they are called to be an angel to us.
Oh, very much so,
Exactly.
yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Well, one of the coolest moments actually happened to me this last weekend. My first parish was in Norman, Oklahoma, which is where the University of Oklahoma is, about a mile and a half from where I failed. Was my first assignment as an associate. And that first year I baptized a bunch of kids, and so 2 of the kids were actually at Mass this last weekend. They're now 8 and 10 years old.
Aww.
And their grandparents are parishioners here.
Okay.
So what are the odds that I baptized 2 kids my first year, and year 6 as a priest I become their grandparents' pastors?
Aww.
And 2 hours away from where that was. So it's amazing how God uses these things in our past to really affirm where we are in the present. So Grandma came up and said, hey, you remember him? It's like, I can honestly say no. It's like, well, here's the picture of you baptizing him 8 years ago when he was 3 weeks old. It's like, that's pretty cool. That's a pretty cool thing. So do I have children of my own? No. I will never be a biological father. But being a spiritual father is more than I could ever want, more than I could have ever hoped for. So it's been a great blessing.
And it's given you a bunch of joy.
Oh my gosh, so much so. Yeah.
See, did you catch that? A bunch of joy. I always like to pull that out there. Would be so cool. If anyone ever decides to be a priest because they've watched one of Jeff and Gina's videos, let us know. It'll help me a little bit. I carried tremendous guilt when I married Jeff because he was going to be a priest. And he went to seminary for 2 years. He took 1 year off just to decide, is this really to discern? Because that's a big commitment. It's bigger than being a regular pastor to be a Catholic priest. And he met me, and we shared our first kiss on the eve of Easter. And I want to tell you, God helped me to get over this tremendous guilt that I had, because Jeff would have been a wonderful priest. He's so creative, he's so fun.
Some of the best fathers would make priests, and some of the best priests would make great fathers.
Yeah.
It's the same vocation in many ways.
Yeah, but where God helped me with my guilt is Jeff decided to leave seminary for a year on the eve of Easter.
Okay.
And a year later, we shared our first kiss on the eve of Easter.
Okay.
We got married at Easter time. We have 2 children, 5 years apart, born within days of Easter.
That's beautiful.
And when I had the second child at Easter time, that's where I do, okay, God's talking to me.
Because we don't get it the first, the second, the third time, the fourth time, sometimes we get it.
Stop it. It's okay. I put Jeff on your path.
There you go.
We were meant to
No. God put you on my path.
Oh. It works both ways.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well, thank you so much, Father Grover.
Of course. Very nice to meet you guys. Good to have you guys here.
Yeah. And everybody, hold on to your anchor moments and have a great day.
God bless.